Okay, so now I'm on the other side of the curtain. So hi everyone. It's great to see you. And so I'm a faculty here in the marketing division, and I don't do research in healthcare per se, but I want to share with you some research that I think is relevant to healthcare, and that's about how firms design logos. And so actually, I would show you a couple of examples from healthcare. But what we're trying to do basically in this research is try to bring a bit of science to the design of logos and try to understand how a logo conveys the personality of the brand, how it conveys what the brand does, what the brand stands for, and then trying to help entrepreneurs and innovators and managers design logos that will send the message that they want to send to their customers. So that's kind of the premise of what we're trying to do here. So you should see now a PDF, right? Okay, so and this is work with two of my colleagues. Ryan Du was a PhD student here in the business school and is now a professor at Wharton. And Asim Ansari is one of my colleagues here in the business school. Yeah, I mean, the idea here is that logos actually are often the first thing that people see about a brand, and they contain a lot of information. It's very subtle, it's very subjective. There's shapes, there's colors, there's font, there's symbols. And the question is, what information is conveyed there and how can we quantify this? So we are data scientists, so we're trying to bring a quantitative lens to these questions. And so some of the questions we would like to be able to answer is, what happens if a brand changes their logo? So if you add some different colors to your logo, how does it change the perception of your company? And then what if I'm trying to actually innovate and let's say I want to have a daring fast food? So how would my logo differ from the traditional fast food chains? What cues could I use to signal that actually I'm a little bit different, I'm more innovative, I'm more daring than maybe McDonald's? And then of course, if I want to be perceived by the market as being innovative or being fair or being cutting edge or being outdoorsy, what type of logo features can I use to signal this to the market? So we're going to treat logos as data. We're going to design a machine learning, deep learning approach to actually start from this very complex image of a logo combined with a description of what the brand does and the knowledge of the industry of the brand. And also we're going to add to that how people perceive the brand on some personality dimensions. So we're going to take all of these data, it's a mix of text and numbers and images, very high dimensional, and we're going to basically extract from that using machine learning a summary, a latent summary of the brand that is going to be a vector in some abstract high dimensional space that is going to basically capture the essence of the brand. And then once we have that, actually, we can do lots of cool things. We can add brands together, we can subtract, we can extrapolate, we can change some components and predict how the others would change, and so on and so forth. So I won't have time to go into the details of the method, but hopefully I will give you a flavor of some of the things that we're able to do. So we collected some data. We have about 700 brands. We have the logo. We have the text description of what they do. And then also what we like to do in marketing is we like to think of brands as people. And so actually we like to rate brands on personality traits. So for example, Nike would be confident, cool, trendy, successful, good looking. So we have these ratings for each of our brands. So we know the profile of the brand, what they stand for, and also we know the logo. And we're going to try to bring all these together again to try to understand how all of these components interact with each other to create the overall gestalt of the brand, if you want. So we started by actually extracting features from logos, things like color, format and shape, the font, the complexity of the logo, how many corners does it have, how many regions, is it symmetrical, the orientation. So you have a bunch of different measures of logos. So this is before even running the machine learning algorithm. We extracted some features, some descriptors of the logos, and then we put together, actually, if you want to check out this tool here, I can show you actually maybe some of the things we find. So just to understand how logos differ across industries and across types of brands. So let me go here. So let's say, one second. Okay, so suppose I want to see how the maybe the brand personality changes as a factor of the industry. So let's say I want to see how biotech companies actually tend to be perceived differently from, I don't know, consumer electronics and from financial services. And so you can see here in our data, we find that actually biotech companies tend to score high on this dimension of competence. So they tend to be viewed as being more competent, and they tend to be low on ruggedness and sophistication. So this is just, we're looking at how perception varies across industries. So again, we're just exploring the data here. And then if you want to look at logos, for example, we can see, okay, how would the color of the logo differ across industries? And so we see that in biotech companies, for example, there's more likely to be blue medium in the blue medium in the logo, and actually it's less likely to be black. So we can see already some trends in how different industries actually tend to use different norms for the logos. So that's kind of useful information, but we can do better than that. We can go deeper, and what we can do is build this nice deep learning model that is going to start with all the data we have. We have the logo data, we have the brand personality data, we have the text, we have the industry data, and we're going to feed this through a neural network that is going with lots of layers. So this is called a variational autoencoder, and we're going to extract from there a latent representation, which is basically, again, a vector that is going to capture the essence of the brand. And then from this vector, then we can feed this through a neural network in the other direction to reconstruct, given this latent representation, what the logo would look like, what would be the brand personality of the brand, and what type of text they would use to describe themselves, and so and what industry that we think they should belong to. So basically, the idea here is to construct this latent representation that it doesn't really have a clear interpretable meaning, but actually allows us to capture the essence of the brand in some abstract dimension. So that sounds very abstract and complicated, but what do we do with that? Well, we can first see, okay, in that abstract space, let's see where brands fit. And so, for example, if you look at Facebook, we see that Facebook actually is near Twitter and Uber. So we're seeing that this latent space actually tends to capture a little bit of what the brand does and kind of the industry, and then maybe also some features of the logos, like square logos, for example, might be more likely to be in the same space. We see McDonald's being close to Heinz and Wells Fargo. So here, even though the industries are different, we see the color scheme of the logos being similar. Also, this perception of being, American, all American traditional brands also. That's something else that they have in common. So we're trying to see how we've been able to basically put all these brands in this latent space that seems to capture perception of brands, and brands that are close in that space would also be close in perceptions and logos. And so what we can do then is we can do some cool things once we have this latent space to ideate and design new brands and redesign logos and so on and so forth. So for example, if let's say I want to create a new brand that is going to be a hybrid between Old Navy and Mercedes-Benz. So what I can do is I can take the Old Navy brand, the Mercedes-Benz brand. I can look at their abstract embeddings, like these latent vectors, and see what happens if I combine them. And then once I combine them, I get this new vector, and then see what type of features I would expect, and what type of brands also tend to be close to this average of the two. And so you can see Burberry actually in our data is the closest brand to being in the middle between Old Navy and Mercedes-Benz. So we see kind of a more luxurious version of a clothing company. If you bring Nike and Louis Vuitton together, we get something like Calvin Klein. So again, like something a little bit like, in between in terms of luxury. Also the logo, also all black, some similar features. And if you combine Google and McKinsey, you get Cognizant, which is a technology consulting company. So we're seeing how we can actually use this now to combine brands and see if I want to do the Uber of healthcare, for example, you can combine Uber with Pfizer and then see what type of brands you would get. Now, here's a little case study in healthcare. Suppose you want to create a medical device brand identity. So you're trying to create something that's at the intersection of healthcare and technology. And so we're going to basically look at the average of all the healthcare brands and the average of all the technology brands, and we're going to combine that and see what type of brands would you expect to get at the intersection of healthcare and technology. And then we see here some existing brands that tend to be close to this point. So, some of them actually are biotech companies. And then we can also predict, using our model, what type of logos we would expect to see from a brand that is combining healthcare and technology. And so you can see again the blue and this is just a mock-up of what the logo would look like based on the features, based on what the model tells us. So that could be helpful if you're launching a new brand, to try to understand what type of logos you might want to use, what type of color schemes, fonts, what type of shapes, and also what type of brand identity you might want to target. And then you can also, again, if you want to design a completely new brand, let's say you want to build a Shake Shack, which is a upscale urban fast food chain. So how would you design a logo for an upscale urban fast food chain? So obviously you want to be different from the traditional fast food, but how do you infuse this differentiation in your logo? And so again, you can use a model to say, okay, here's what I want. Here's a text of what I want to be. So you can as a designer, I can write up a brief of here's a description of the new brand. Here's, we want to be fresh ingredients. We want to be exciting. We want to have community and so on and so forth. We want to be hospitable. And I'm also going to as a brief, maybe input into the model how I want to be perceived. I want to be perceived as exciting and cool and glamorous. And so I'm going to input that into the model. And so now the model, given the industry and the brand personality and the text of the description of the brand, is going to infer from that what the logo should look like. And so we're going to basically use our deep learning model to infer what the logo should look like, and you get something like this. You get a dashboard, if you want, that is telling you that if you want to design a logo for this brand, given the profile that you're trying to target, here are the features of the logo that you should try to use, the different colors and the shapes and the fonts and so on and so forth. So we're not designing the actual logo, but we're giving input to the entrepreneur or to the designer, telling them what type of features we would expect to see in the logo. So in summary, we've tried to bring a little bit of science to the topic of logos, which have been a very fuzzy and subjective exercise up to that point. We're using deep learning and machine learning to extract some essential latent components of logos that combine the visuals with the text and the brand personality perceptions. And then once we have that, then actually we can manipulate brands in different ways. We can find a missing piece of the puzzle given the other pieces. We can combine brands. We can extrapolate, interpolate, and at the end of the day, help designers and entrepreneurs design logos given the message that they're trying to convey to their audience. So that's in a nutshell what I have. I think maybe we have time for few questions. I don't know.
Well, thank you so much, Olivier, in any case, for sharing what you do. A little bit, like you say, sort of not directly related to digital health, but interesting nonetheless to see where these kinds of designs and logos and ideas come from. And certainly it's not industry specific, is it, this kind of work? So very much appreciate you being here today with us and sharing all you've been working on.
Yeah, sure, my pleasure.